Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for listening and welcome back to another episode of the Business Owners Freedom Formula Show, where we chat with inspiring entrepreneurs and dig into their highs, lows, and everything in between of their business building journey and learn about how they've been able to achieve ultimate freedom. In today's episode number 16, we have another great guest with us here today. So let's jump right in. We have top business growth expert Yoon Cannon. She helps entrepreneurs boost sales, productivity, and profits so they can create thriving 6, 7, and even 8-figure businesses. Since 1992, Yoon has started, turnkeyed, and sold 3 other businesses and has been featured in CNN, Money Magazine, Inc., Entrepreneur, Fortune Magazine, The Wall Street Journal, and more. Yoon is also a wife and mother of 3 teenagers, and she lives outside of Philadelphia. Be sure to check out her library of free sales and marketing checklists, and there are some really great things there at ParamountBusinessCoach.com. So that is Yoon Cannon from Paramount Business Coach. Welcome. Thanks so much for being here. How's it going?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Paul.
Thank you so much. And just by going through your short bio, I think we got a lot of things to dig in here that our listeners are definitely going to enjoy. So take us back to 1992, or even before that, when you first started your first business. How did that come to be anyway?
Well, I started my first business. It was a marketing business, actually right out of college. I got a lease, leased out I forget how big the space was, but leased an office, hired receptionists, plunked some money into advertising, started hiring and training sales reps. So I was pretty strong out of the gate as far as, overhead.
Right. That is a big liability to take on right out of college.
Right. So that's what that was my first, real business. But really, I think prior to that, it didn't feel like a big risk at the time, because my first taste working for myself, I started back when I was 14. I was starting to teach piano lessons. And back then the choice was make $2 an hour babysitting, or I was charging $25 an hour, teaching piano lessons. And that carried with me through college. I freelanced as a college student. And I just couldn't understand how I could work for, whatever it was, $2, $3 an hour waiting tables plus tips, or make $100 to $300 an hour, freelancing. And so that was just a really natural segue. I think I was primed and groomed to be a terrible employee.
Perfect. You were unemployable.
Right. So I just, it didn't feel like a big risk, at the time.
Excellent. And I think really what you hit on there is, I talk to a lot of people, I see a lot of people, and I'm sure you run into the same types of people where they think it's such a big risk to become their own boss, when really, in that sense, when you are your own boss, you are in total control. Whereas if you're working for somebody else, no matter what it is, waiting tables, doing anything, you don't really have any control, although for some reason people think that's the more secure route to go. So when you graduated college, obviously you had this idea already. You didn't just say, I'm going to do this, one day where you woke up. So, what kind of inspired you to get to just say, okay, I graduated college, I got my degree, I'm going to go figure out how to start my own business?
Well, I didn't really have the idea. I at the time, I was thinking I would love to go to New York and work on Broadway. That was my mindset. And then I thought, gosh, I need a lot of money to be able to support myself so I can go and do all of these auditions. And so when I was looking at the money route of how can I make a lot of money in a little bit of time, and so starting my own business felt like a temporary shot, right, where I could save up a bunch. And so at the time, I really was only going to do it for 1 or 2 years. And I thought, okay, I'll do this for a couple of years, and then I have a huge savings that can carry me through to my New York City kind of, dreams at the time. And then 1 or 2 years turned into, oh, wow, you know what? I really want to open up another branch location. Let me do this for another 2 years. And that sort of kept going. And then before I knew it, was 7 years later, I had 6 additional branch locations. I facilitated the growth of 38 other new location openings. And by that time, it was like, Broadway, what? I just didn't want to do it anymore. I just didn't have that itch anymore. And I found myself really enjoying business and people, and just being in the people business as far as, hiring and developing and, figuring out the sales and marketing thing. That it just was an accident. I hadn't realized that was something I was wired to do, perhaps. So yeah, it started out just as a temporary solution, and then I just fell in love with it, and I kept going.
Wow, awesome. So when you're scaling that business, which by accident you grew to, I don't know, what was your total there? Would you have 8 or 9 locations for that business?
There was 6 additional branch locations that I had trained and hired for, or I guess it's backwards, hired and trained for. And I worked in a very much like you have a franchise background. And so the business I was hooked in with, it wasn't an official franchise, but it did run very similar to a franchise. So I did have the support, and training of the parent organization, but I was still, I was still responsible for all of my overhead, and my expenses and my hiring and so forth. So yeah, and then I was able to facilitate, 38 new locations, which primarily means that I helped with a lot of the training and development with those managers.
That is awesome. So, kind of digging into that a little bit further, what do you think made it successful? Like you said, you kind of built it like a franchise, even though you owned everything. And how were you able to do that successfully? What kind of, what did you see worked best when you're opening a new location? How could you just continue to duplicate it? Because at the end of the day, I think that's what everybody's goal is, to build a business that doesn't need them to run. Obviously, you have all these locations where you trusted those people on a day-to-day basis, because you're not going to be there as an integral part of actually keeping the business running. You're obviously the leader and the visionary. So what did you find kind of worked best to make that shift to really start scaling your business?
Well, as far as scaling it, from day one, it was really about systematizing the process. Having a system and a process for marketing, for business development, having a system and a process how you make a sale. And then that translates over to having a system and process for hiring new people, hiring new sales reps, training them. And then it really became, as far as if you want your organization to have high sales productivity, one of the keys behind that, in addition to having a sales process, was it's really important to have a high flyer, in a sales organization. So I found that that was one of the tips I learned early on. And what I found out was, the pace of one location, as far as what they're doing in sales, is kind of at the same pace of whoever is leading, as the flyer. So if you have a mid flyer, then pretty much everybody else, all the other salespeople, are going to do about, they're going to do under, what that mid flyer is doing, if that's the highest
Right.
sales pacer, right, the pace setter. And so if you can just zero in on developing someone who pops, and that high flyer potential, and then you're going to bring, that person is going to set the pace for the rest of the organization, and they follow suit. And so
Wow.
that's really been, when you think about the Pareto principle, and 80% of your results occur from 20% of your effort, this is it. I used to exhaust myself being able to try to spread myself out and help every individual put as much energy, to each and every individual sales rep. But then when I went to implement this high flyer principle, and you put 80% of your energy to 20% of your people who have that potential to be the high flyer, that's what ended up getting 80% of the sales growth. So that, coupled with, of course, you put that on top of the foundation of having systems in place and following that system.
That's great. And I think that's a really good tip. A lot of people probably don't overlook, like you said, when you start to build that team and you're building a culture within it, it's
Right.
very easy to let that high flyer just kind of do their own thing, because you don't have to worry about them, and you put all of your energy into the second and third tier people. which, like you said, you're exhausting yourself. So that's a very interesting concept. You basically raise that other person up substantially and allow that to bring everybody else up as well. So definitely some actionable takeaways there. So with your first business, how long did you actually run it before you decided to sell it and start your next venture?
Well, I had the marketing business for 7 years, right?
Okay.
And that one I actually didn't sell. But I went on to be able to start another business. I started a performing arts center. I started a retail business. I had a nonprofit production company, and then an entertainment venue with a food and liquor license. So those businesses I grew for 10 years, and then I sold 3 of those businesses. 2006 is the last one I sold, and then 2007 I started Paramount Business Coach.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on your 10-year anniversary, or if it hasn't come up yet, it is
Yes.
2017. So
Yes.
well done to make it to that milestone with this business. So obviously you have backgrounds in many different types of businesses, things that you might not even think go together, but obviously you figured out a way to make all those works, whether it was a passion or really just putting all those systems in the right people in the right places. What did all those businesses though have in common when you're able to turnkey them? Because obviously you as one owner was owning and operating many different types of businesses. So how were you able to turnkey all those, and maintain your sanity, your freedom, as well as, making sure they run smoothly?
Well, they each had other people, performing, helping to generate sales, So it wasn't just all on me. My first business as a marketing business, they were called sales reps, right? But then when I started Performing Arts Center, my sales team, they were actually called receptionists, but they functioned, and I trained them, to play that sales role. And so they were the front facing people for the organization, and they were the ones, who enrolled new clients and who took the phone call, took the lead, built a relationship, had a phone approach process, and then had an in-person process to convert that lead into a client. So they were called receptionists, and in other businesses, people might call them, if you're in a builder contractor kind of business, you might call them estimators. They're your salespeople. Somebody else might call them business development people. So you've got to have a team. And if you're a solopreneur listening, you might feel like, oh, well, that doesn't apply to me, but actually it does, because when I started my business coaching practice as a solo, you kind of think, well, I think I'm the one-man show and I do it all. I'm business development and sales. But really, you can start building your sales team. They're just called your strategic referral partners, or they're called your affiliate partners, your joint venture partners. So there are other people who can play that role and fulfill the function of generating more sales and attracting more clients to your business. So that is a piece that's consistent in whatever vertical you're in. You just have to think of what is the name of the person or the people who are going to play that role. And so I would say, don't dismiss it if you're not in a business where they're typically called sales reps. Don't dismiss that.
Right.
You just got to find who are they.
Excellent. And I think that really is a great, really great introduction to that, because there are so many businesses where the person answering the initial, phone call from a prospective customer, they don't even think as themselves as a salesperson. I'm just here, like you said, as a receptionist or a customer service, rep. And my job is to just answer the phone and answer questions and not really sell the product. But when you flip that, that's your best opportunity. Like you said, you only get one chance to make that first impression. And when that person gets elevated and kind of empowered to be a sales, have that sales integrity and that, kind of incentive, versus my job is just to sit here and answer phones all day, I think it really does add that dynamic and probably empowers that person to make them feel like they are a part of something bigger, instead of I'm replaceable and anybody can answer the phone. So that is great. I really think our listeners will get a lot out of that as well. So obviously in the last 25 years, you've been building businesses, and we've really hit on a lot of the successes and lessons learned and all that. But with any business, as you know, you've been coaching them for a long time and running them for even longer. What were some of the biggest struggles along the way where you thought, this is just not going to work for me and I gotta figure this out?
Oh yeah. I've had plenty of those. It definitely has not been a cakewalk. It gets easier, as you learn these lessons. But I can remember, early on, Paul, my first business. Oh my gosh, I got my first tax return. I remember how painful that was to see the number, because reality was I worked my tail off.
Yeah.
First couple of years, I was working 60, 70, 80 hours a week. I was just really grinding it. And I was, at the time, I remember my first couple of years, I was generating a lot of sales. So you think that you made more, but then when you take out all your expenses, and I looked at my tax return and I figured out my net profits, and that was so crushing to me, because at the time I'm thinking, oh my gosh, for the hours that I worked, I would have made more working at McDonald's.
Yeah.
I just felt like, was I foolish to think that this was, the right decision, the wise decision? And so it was pretty crushing. But I do remember, I was listening to a lot of motivational speakers and so forth at the time. And I remember this one story that came up that really inspired me and helped me at a time when I felt like I should just give up. I should just quit and I should just go get a job, right? So do you know the story of Florence Chadwick?
I don't think so. What is it? Let's hear it.
All right. So 1952, she's a swimmer. She steps into the waters of the Pacific Ocean. It's off the Catalina Island.
Uh-huh.
She was really determined to swim to the shore of mainland California. She was already the first woman to swim the English Channel both ways. And the weather was really foggy that day and very chilly. She could hardly see the boats. And still she swam, she swims for 15 hours. She was begging to be taken out of the water. And she just said she couldn't make it. She couldn't make it. She was physically and emotionally exhausted. And she finally just stopped swimming. And they pulled her out of the water. And even though it was her own mother in the boat, right, who was alongside, and she just kept saying, keep swimming, keep going. But she finally stopped swimming and they pulled her into the boat. And when she got into the boat, she discovered she was less than half a mile away.
Wow.
Yeah. And so at the news conference the next day, what she said was, all I could see was the fog. I think if I could see the shore, I would have made it.
Kept going.
Yeah. And so for me, I remember when hearing that story early on, it was just a realization that I could be so close to success in my business.
Just don't know it.
Yeah. And something finally clicked, actually, when I was looking at my tax return, thinking, you know what? I just made all of my fixed expenses. So really, anything I do past this is going to be pure profit. And I could easily add another 100, 200,000 in sales over the next course of the year. And that's going to be pure profit. And so that story really inspired me to, because I did feel like giving up. I was absolutely physically exhausted. I was emotionally exhausted. Being an entrepreneur, it's a roller coaster ride. It takes all of you, right? It takes everything. It can take everything out of you. But yeah, when I felt like quitting, that's the story that really inspired me. And that's what I kept focusing on, is everything after this is pure profit. So let's not give up. I might not be able to see the end, but I believe I'm close. I'm really close. And so if for your listeners, Paul, if your listeners are in that place, I just want to encourage you, with that story of the swimmer who couldn't see the shore, and the story of Florence Chadwick.
That is great. And I mean, it's so true because, as an employee working for somebody, you always kind of know where the end is. Okay, I've made my 40-hour week. I made it to Friday. I made it to the end of the year, whatever it is, you kind of know where your end is. But as an entrepreneur, you're starting your own business. You're blazing your own trail. And you don't know how close you are to that tipping point to, like, all of a sudden tomorrow the floodgates might open and you get that extra 200,000, and it's like, wow. And I think, we talk about it a lot on the show, but with the power of social media,
Mhm.
everybody shares how great it is to be your own boss, how great it is, and all the successes they're having. But that's really just the tip of the iceberg. They don't show all the work, blood, sweat, tears,
Right.
those moments where you're ready to give up. It's just like, so when you see that, it can be very discouraging, because it's like, well, I've been at this for 6 months and it's not working. And I see all these other people
Sure.
having success. I need to change it. And it's, when you realize you might be that close, especially in retrospect, is very, very frustrating. So for everybody out there, definitely take that advice. And as long as you believe in what you're doing, keep at it. Persistency does pay off. So kind of fast forwarding now to, you've been running Paramount Business Coach for 10 years. So what is that all about? What are you looking to do? Who do you help? What's a normal day like? Kind of fill us in on what you're up to today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I coach business owners and I help them boost their sales, their productivity, as well as their profits. So I love helping them get unstuck and get some exciting results. And, I'll give you two classic examples. One of my clients, they had 11 people on their sales team. They're doing 18 million when I first started working with them. And after coaching a number of their people, including their sales manager, they grew to 24 million. So
Wow.
that was exciting, to be a part of increasing their business by 6 million, which is nothing to sneeze at for.
No, especially if they didn't have to add too many, if you're already taking what they've already have in
Yep.
place, kind of like your pure profit there at that line, you add 6 million without adding any expenses.
Yes.
That's pretty impressive. Well done there.
So that was exciting to be a part of that. And on the flip side, I'm also able to help people who are at a newer level. One of my clients, he just started out, actually bought a franchise and started out from zero. And then he hired me to help him be able to create those systems, since it was a fairly new emerging franchise. So he went from 0 to 2 million in less than 2 years. And this guy, Jack, you can read his recommendation on my LinkedIn profile. And so that's been a lot of fun to be able to work with people who are hungry to learn. They're fast action takers and they are open, to how to do things, what's working now, in today's new media and new ways of marketing and doing sales. So that's exciting for me. But for people who might, really just be still at that 6-figure, I just want to encourage you that, hey, think about what's keeping you from getting to that next milestone, getting to that 7-figure mark. And if you're at that 7-figure mark, what's keeping you from going to the next level at the 8-figure mark? And so just wanting to open up your minds, for your listeners, to what's possible and that it is possible.
That's excellent. So it sounds like you're focusing on, obviously with your sales and marketing background, you're focusing a lot on, unless it's a brand new business, kind of like, your franchise owner, Jack, who you helped put systems and processes in place. But for any existing business, a lot of your focus is on sales and marketing. Is that accurate?
Yes. We want to be able to figure out, hey, how can we get your business, how can we move the needle forward and just make the tweaks that we need to make in your sales and marketing so you can really start seeing some fast growth.
Excellent. And what do you see kind of as, a lot of people are obviously stuck, I'm at the 6 figures, I want to get to 7 figures, and I know I'm close, but I just need a little nudge, a little shift. When you're working with those people, where do you see they get stuck at often?
Well, one would be a lot of folks who may have an established business, if they're doing things the old school method and just that, I think that can keep people stuck in being able to leverage getting 10 times better results just by adding something new, as far as whether it's new technology that can get the same process done in a fraction of the time, a new approach as far as, what your sales process is and being able to help them kind of think out of the box there. So I think where people get stuck is that, gosh, this is the way we've always done it.
Yeah.
And so
people don't like to change.
Yeah. Trying to introduce, there is an easier way to get the result you're looking for. And just it's just really that it's changed. It's, oh my gosh, can we learn this new system or this new technology? And I don't even, start them on difficult technology. I have some pretty easy.
Keep it simple.
Start, yeah. So
No,
you don't have to go super complex.
that's great. And I kind of tell everybody that I talk to, whether it's business owners or even just day-to-day life,
Right.
if you're sitting there thinking, I wish there was a piece of technology that could do this quicker or do it for me, this day and age, odds are there probably is. I was just talking to someone before we were chatting, and they said, I really wish I could, while I'm on my morning walks, I could talk into my phone and it would type everything out, and I would use that for my blog posts. And I said, well, ironically, if you have an iPhone, I think it already does that, but you could also use something like Google Docs or even Gmail or something like that. And like you said, it's very simple, but making that change or even thinking about making that change, sometimes you have to pull it out of them where they might say, hey, it takes me 4 hours to write a blog post, but I wish I could just talk into it kind of like a podcast. And then obviously there is technology to do that. So I think that really is great, because there are so many simple shifts that you can make to free up 10, 15 hours a week that you could then go deploy to, making your business more money through sales and marketing. So
Right.
that's really exciting. Obviously, we are all about systems and processes. So what kind of systems do you have in place kind of for you on a day-to-day basis and or for your clients to improve that productivity so you can spend more time on those revenue generating activities?
Well, one, it's important to have a system that's going to generate leads, right? So I'm sure you're familiar with having a lead generation magnet and having someone opt in who can really give you the a flag that says, here's somebody who's interested and they're in the market, they're in the research phase of making a purchasing decision. So for those of our listeners who don't have a lead generation magnet, then that's something that you want to create a system for. That's the beginning part of your sales and marketing system. Now, if you have one, but it's not actually growing your email list of leads, then that's something you want to take a look at it. How can you optimize that system? Maybe it's the landing page needs to be tweaked. Maybe it's the copy. Maybe it's the layout, the interface. Maybe it's the technology you're using, so maybe you can just use easier technology where it pulls up pretty fast. It doesn't have to take so long to load. So as far as systems are concerned, I think that's important to be able to use the right tools to generate. You need a lead generation system, so that's important.
That's great. And I think, a lot of business owners, they kind of get stuck in the day-to-day stuff, just keeping the business afloat. A lot of times they don't even think of a lead generation system, let alone, what is it? So, for instance, say I own a plumbing business. What would I do to generate more leads? What is an example of a lead generation magnet to get more people interested in my business? What could I do if I was, say, a plumber?
Sure. All right. So you threw a really obscure one out there.
Yeah, exactly. Put you to the test.
Well, you want to start with who you're going to go after, right? Who's your type A level clients? So if you're going to go after, let's say, builders as your strategic referral partners, because again, this is your sales team. You might be somewhat of a solo operation. So if a builder has their choice of who are the plumbers they're going to recommend for, their sale is going to be a development, so if the plumber is going to get a referral, he's going to get referred to 250 residents, in that development. And some developments are even bigger with 1,000 residents. So let's go for the bigger bulk numbers. So if it's for a builder, then it could be something along the lines of, well, you got to think, what do builders, what are their, what's their confusion when it comes to plumbers? So let's say hypothetically, it could be, how to tell, if someone is excellent or a novice or a beginner, right? And so you could come up with some kind of a resource guide, a checklist of, how to tell if you've got a novice or a beginner plumber checklist. I mean, you got to come up with a better headline than that, but
right.
But the whole idea.
Is,
yeah. So there's a hypothetical situation where, you're trying to attract your sales team of more builders to refer you. And then of course you'll do the same process on the customer side, if you want the end buyer to be your customer. But that would be, where I would start with the client.
Awesome. That really does help. And well done. You passed the on the spot test. But really the idea is I talk to a lot of business owners who say, well, I don't really have anything I could do for that. And no matter what business you are, whatever customers, your ideal customer has a problem that you solve,
Mhm.
you want to provide them value, you know, content, education on something that they might not know, whether it's a checklist,
Right.
a quick guide, the top 5 ways to know this or top 5 reasons you need to do this. Because the idea is then you get them on your email list and then you nurture them, educate them, continue to provide value, and then eventually, they become your customer. And then, like you said, that strategic referral
Mhm.
partner who then will generate leads for you. Even if you are a solopreneur without a sales force, leverage those relationships as much as you can. So awesome there. Well done. So now kind of looking at your business, Paramount Business Coaching, what are the future plans? Where are you looking to take this business next?
Well, I'm looking right now. I'm actually working on some new projects as far as building out some new course material. So stuff, even topics like this, if for people who aren't ready yet to work and invest into having a one-on-one, a private consultant or a coach, they're still able to get this type of transformation. And so I'm really currently working on building out that library for the business owner who doesn't yet know how to hire their first sales rep. So being able to work on that, and they can do that at their own pace. They can also access me, through my weekly coaching clinics, and ask me for questions that way. And so I still enjoy running the mastermind groups that I have. I run this program called Power Biz Academy, and so I still have that going on. But as far as what I'm working on next, it would be increasing that library for business owners.
Awesome. We'll definitely be sure to link that up here at the end of the show to get everybody access to those resources. Like you said, whether you're building, putting your first employee in place or you've got 10 and you need to grow to 20, I'm sure there will be resources there for you. So thanks so much for that. As you know, though, all good things do come to an end. After all, we are all about freedom on the show, so we don't want to take up too much more of your time or our listeners' time. But before we sign off, it is time for our rapid recommendations for all things related to systems, automation, and freedom. So I've got 6 topics here. I'm going to give you one at a time. You're going to give our listeners one thing to motivate them or to go check out at the end of this show. So starting off, what is one book you would recommend for anybody out there?
Oldie but a goodie, I think is still relevant today, is E-Myth.
The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, E-Myth Revisited, all
Yes.
about stop working in your business so you can start working on your business. We've had a lot of guests recommend that for a good reason. So if you still haven't checked it out, go do that now. What about one quote that you like to live by?
I like Marshall Goldsmith's quote, and that he turned into a book. What got you here won't get you there.
Totally true. Kind of along the same lines of you keep doing the same thing, you cannot expect different results. So motivational there. What about one tool that you like to use on a regular basis?
A new one I really love is called Charlie app, and it pulls together some social media data for people who you might be having meetings with, and it just sends it straight to your email. Love it.
Wow, awesome. So we'll definitely be sure to link that up. Sounds like that would be a great thing for anybody that's in sales wanting to build that rapport with someone that you're about to meet with. What about one podcast that you like to listen to on a regular basis?
I like Andy Stanley has a podcast on leadership, and I think that's important for business owners.
I totally agree. If you can switch from being a manager to a leader, your staff will stay longer and they'll produce more and they'll be a lot happier, which will turn into happier customers. So we'll definitely be sure to share that with everybody as well. And then as far as a community that you like to hang out in, it could be in person, it could be anything, any place that you like to hang out online. Where do you like to hang out when you have a little bit of free time?
Gosh, it's so hard to pick one. There's a lot of great communities. I would say one would be, I haven't visited in a little while, but Michael Hyatt's platform community. He does a great job with helping his tribe in building it.
Very, very good. And then last but not least, one parting piece of advice for any business owner out there who is stuck, burned out, or just trying to get over the hump.
Yeah, I'd say if you're stuck, really just don't be afraid to get some professional advice, get some help. There's no award for doing everything all by yourself. It's just, don't try to figure it out all on your own. We all have blind spots. I mean, Lord knows I've had to ask for help along the way as well. So you'd be surprised how fast 10 years could sneak up on you, and you don't want to turn back and think, wow, I could have done that in a fraction of the time if I had gotten some help. So that would be my parting advice.
That is great advice, and really the power of a mentor, a mastermind, people that have been where you want, been where you are, and they are where you want to be. Don't hesitate to reach out, because usually those people are willing to help, and the time you can get to where you want to go will be amplified, and you get there much quicker. So we'll definitely take that to heart. Yoon Cannon, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to impart some of your knowledge, wisdom, and enthusiasm to our community. Hopefully this helps everyone out there get one step closer to achieving ultimate freedom in their business and in life. But before we sign off, where can our listeners go to keep in touch with you?
Best place is just come to ParamountBusinessCoach.com, and you'll see all the different ways you can get connected with me there.
Perfect. We will definitely link that up for everybody out there. ParamountBusinessCoach.com, all sorts of resources, information to help you get you where you want to go. She has 25 plus years of experience of running businesses. So learn from the best and get to where you want to go much quicker. Thanks again for spending some time with us. Really appreciate it. For everybody else out there, stay tuned for next week's episode as we dive into another fantastic interview with Courtney Foster Donahue from CourtneyFosterDonahue.com. And if you do like what you're hearing, we'd always appreciate a friendly review, subscribe, and share it with your friends to help them as well. Lastly, don't forget, you can always join our free Facebook group at bizfreedomformula.com, where we can continue the conversation with like-minded entrepreneurs who are putting the plans in place to work less, make more, and achieving ultimate freedom while increasing the value of their business along the way. So until next time, keep rocking, trust the process, and talk to you soon.